The largest Muslim country in the world isn't Saudi Arabia. It isn't Egypt. It's Indonesia, a nation thousands of miles from Mecca with no ethnic Arab majority. The second largest Muslim population, India. Third, Pakistan. Fourth, Bangladesh. The Arab world, where Islam began, is a minority of the global Muslim population. This pattern started almost immediately after Muhammad's death, and it created one of the deepest fault lines in early Islamic history. This demographic reality was already taking shape in the first century of Islam. To understand why it matters so much, we need to meet a group called the Mawali. Mawali, singular Mawla, means non-Arab Muslim converts. At Muhammad's death in 632, every Muslim on earth was Arab. Within decades, Islamic conquests swept across the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia, bringing millions of non-Arabs into contact with the faith. Many converted. The religion claimed universality. A famous saying attributed to Muhammad states there is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, but Arab ethnic identity carried enormous prestige. Muhammad was Arab, and the Quran was in Arabic. Mecca sat in Arabia. Mawali were expected to learn Arabic, make pilgrimage to Mecca, and follow every Islamic obligation. But were they treated as equals? The evidence says no. The Mawali were Muslim in faith, but not Arab in blood. That created a social tension. But it was a fiscal decision that turned tension into outrage. To understand it, you need to know how the early Caliphate collected taxes, because the tax system had two tiers, and which tier you fell into determined your entire economic life. Here's how it worked. Muslims paid zakat, an obligatory religious charity. The burden was relatively low. Non-Muslims, called dhimmis, meaning protected subjects under Islamic rule, paid two heavier taxes, jizya, a poll tax, and kharaj, a land tax. The combined burden was significantly higher. Conversion initially meant moving from the high tax tier to the low tax tier. That was a powerful incentive. But here's the problem. As conversions accelerated, especially in Persia, where they moved faster than in Egypt or Syria, the Caliphate's tax base shrank. Fewer people paying the higher rate meant less revenue. The state's solution was blunt: declare that new converts must continue paying the higher non-Muslim tax rates. This was a fiscal bait and switch. You converted for spiritual and material reasons, and the material promise was broken. You were Muslim in every obligation, but taxed as if you weren't. You might expect all these angry converts to flock to the biggest opposition movement available, Shiism, which challenged the legitimacy of the ruling caliphate. Some did, but the reality is more complicated. Scholars debate the connection between Mawali grievance and Shiite allegiance. The overlap was real but partial. Some Mawali supported Shiism. Many didn't. Some Arabs were Shiite. Many Mawali joined other opposition movements or none at all. Discontent was widespread, but its political expression didn't follow a single ethnic line. One temptation to resist, Persia eventually became the heartland of Shiite Islam, but it was formalized under the Safavid dynasty in the 1500s, nearly 9 centuries later. Reading that outcome backward onto the early period distorts the evidence. The early history is messier than the later map suggests. Mawali grievance, Shiite allegiance, and anti-Caliphate opposition were 3 overlapping but distinct categories. Discontent didn't just fuel political opposition, it also fed something deeper, the impulse toward prophecy itself, and this impulse turns out to be far bigger than Islam alone. Islam declares Muhammad the Khatam al-Nabiyyin, the seal of the prophets. No prophet comes after him. Yet new prophetic claimants keep emerging. The core insight is once a religious tradition establishes the category of the divinely inspired leader, it cannot fully close the door. The very language of prophecy invites new claims. And this pattern isn't unique to Islam. Christianity declared the apostolic age closed, yet new prophetic movements arose. Montanism in the 2nd century, Joachim of Fiore in the 12th, modern Pentecostalism today. Judaism declared prophecy ended after the Second Temple's destruction, yet messianic claimants persisted, Bar Kokhba, Sabbatai Zevi, and others. Internal discontent, like Mawali grievance, provides fertile ground. A discontented population is more receptive to a charismatic figure claiming divine authority. So, what do we take from this? The Mawali problem isn't a medieval curiosity, it's a pattern, a structural tension that recurs whenever a universalist ideology meets the ethnic and cultural hierarchies of the people who spread it. The pattern works like this. A universalist claim, all believers are equal, meets an ethnic or cultural hierarchy that persists beneath it. That hierarchy produces fiscal and material inequality. The inequality breeds internal discontent, and the discontent fuels opposition movements, which often generate their own universalist claims. And the cycle repeats. Rome promised citizenship, but kept provincial subjects subordinate. European empires promised civilization but maintained racial hierarchies. The Mawali experienced this 1300 years ago. When you encounter a universalist movement, religious, political, ideological, ask one question: who benefits? Is the promise of equality real, or does the inner circle retain special status? The Mawali asked that question. It hasn't stopped being relevant.